Realizing you grew up with dysfunctional family dynamics can bring about an entire shift in your perspective, like turning on a light bulb. Suddenly, you see your entire life experiences through a new lens, and what was once black and white is now full color. My name is Oliver, and I'm a family systems therapist. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about 5 dysfunctional family dynamics. And for each of those family dynamics, I'm going to give you 3 questions. And these questions are designed to get you thinking about your own family of origin and what constitutes normal and what constitutes healthy. As a therapist, I've seen how powerful this shift in perspective can be when you start realizing what's normal and what's not. I mean, it's not easy realizing that the family that you grew up in wasn't healthy or wasn't functioning properly. And it is also a very essential part in healing and moving forward. If this is a healthy family structure, then an enmeshed family looks more like this. Everyone is very close to each other. There's not a lot of distance between family members. And more importantly, at least from a structural family systems perspective, we have children in and out of the parent levels. This is a really important concept to understand. Here are the 3 statements or questions that are going to get you thinking about your family of origin. So rate each of these statements from 0 to 5, 0 being I disagree completely, and 5 being oh my gosh, that's me, yes. So the first statement is, growing up, our family had very little need for friends outside the family. Number 2, you felt or were made to feel guilty if you wanted to do things away from the family. Number 3, we relied on and depended on each other for everything. A child's experience of an enmeshed family is very confusing. The messages are that they have to follow along with what their parent wants, and individual needs have to be suppressed, or else there will be a big reaction from parents. Alternatively, if a child expresses an interest in Disneyland or Disney princesses, then all of a sudden the entire family is wearing Donald Duck t-shirts and Disney princess crowns, and they've booked a Disney cruise and they're watching the Disney Channel. And as a young child, experiencing this might not be perceived as negative at all. In fact, it could be a wonderful experience, having everyone excited about the same thing. But as the teenage years hits, there is a natural tendency for adolescents to push away from their family, to want to be a different person, an individual. And they are going to have a big emotional reaction to their inability to express uniqueness or develop an identity away from their family. They're going to feel claustrophobic and smothered. The opposite of an enmeshed family is a distant family or disengaged family. And here are 3 questions that might resonate with you if you had a distant or disengaged family. And again, if you rate it from 1 to 5, with 5 being very much agree, the higher the score, the more likely this might relate to you. So the first statement is your family seldom did things together. Number 2, family members got on better with people outside the family than they did with people inside the family. Number 3, family members know very little about the lives of other people in the family. When you compare a distant or disengaged family with a healthy family structure, there's a very obvious distance. The family members have a lot of space between them, which you can interpret as being emotional distance rather than physical, or it could actually be both. Now, in the 1800s, we literally thought that children were tiny adult barbarians who just needed to have morals and rules beaten into them. So family structures might have looked a lot like this. But since then, we've gained an understanding into the developmental needs that children have in order to become happy, healthy young adults. And that's to do with warmth and connection, which you can't do in a disengaged or distant family. Children need to feel close and connected to their parents. And we know this from attachment theory and the experiments that psychologists did on maternal deprivation. We've got decades of research to know that a distant, disengaged family does not create happy kids. All right, triangles. Triangles and triangulation are very common in relationships and not always in a healthy way. It is very difficult for 2 people to stay related to each other without involving another person, another object, or an idea. And the way we get around the difficulty of being in a relationship with someone is to bring in a third person. If you grew up with a sibling, you probably know what this looks like, because hopefully when you and your sibling were squabbling over Lego or toys, a parent most likely will have stepped in to separate you out or make you resolve the issue or whatever it is. That's a healthy example of triangulation because parents will be modeling how to resolve conflict and negotiate sharing things. But the principle is the same. You and your sibling were squabbling, there was conflict between you, and a third person was brought in to help. The same goes on for adult relationships, but in a much less healthy way. When two parents are having difficulty staying connected and intimate and close to each other, a third thing gets brought in. Now, sometimes that could be work. So I'll notice one parent staying longer and longer at the office to avoid whatever is going on in the relationship. But most often it's a third person. And this is where affairs come from. So when two parents aren't meeting each other's needs or talking about it, then one parent might go elsewhere to get those needs met. And of course, this isn't just sexual needs. Emotional affairs are a real thing. It's never appropriate when two parents triangulate a child into the relationship. And this is a major dysfunctional family dynamic. So here are some questions to get you thinking about if your family used triangulation too much. Were there certain family members who tended to take sides or form alliances with each other? Did family members ever involve you in their conflicts with other people or ask you to take sides? Did one parent overshare issues in their marital relationship or seek comfort from you or attempt to get you to see their point of view about another person or co-parent? Let's talk about parentification and adultification. If you were to combine the enmeshed family dynamic with the triangulated family dynamic, you might get a family dysfunction known as parentification or adultification. Now, these are very similar terms, but slightly different. Parentification is a form of role corruption characterized by a parent enlisting a child to fulfill their needs to be cared for. Now, this can be due to physical or logistical necessity, such as an illness or economic hardship, but also when the parent is depressed, using substances, widowed, or some other sort of pathological thing going on. So the child can be actively enlisted into helping take care of the parent, or it can be a passive acceptance of the role because of situational and circumstances. Either way, it's very dysfunctional. Now, adultification is distinct but not incompatible with parentification. In this situation, the adultified child becomes more of a friend and a confidant and an ally rather than a caregiver. The child shares some degree of practical or emotional responsibility with their parent in a relationship that's partner-like. Often the child is exposed to adult knowledge prematurely and inappropriately and assumes adult roles and responsibilities. So here are some questions to get you thinking about whether this was happening in your family dynamic. Number one, were you ever expected to take on responsibilities beyond your age or ability, such as caring for siblings or managing household duties? Were you ever placed in a parental role, such as providing emotional support for parents or making important decisions for the family? Do you ever feel guilty about wanting to or actually pursuing your own life away from your family of origin? Again, the higher the score, the more likely this may have been a thing in your family. The final dysfunctional family dynamic is high conflict or violent families. Now, conflict is just a part of being in a relationship with another person. We all have disagreements. We all get emotional, but ideally we can disagree, get frustrated, but then repair and work through it and become even closer. Relationship conflict can, in a weird way, be a positive thing. In fact, if a family says they never get in any conflict, I am often worried because I just don't see how that is possible. When conflict becomes too frequent or escalates to the point of violence, that is acting out on the feelings of anger, and it becomes dysfunctional. Emotionally mature adults do not hit things, definitely don't hit other people, they don't slam doors or give family members the silent treatment. That's also a very aggressive act in my books. Here are some questions to get you thinking if you were in a high conflict or violent household. Number one, did you grow up in a family where conflicts often escalated into verbal or physical violence? Number two, were you ever afraid to express your thoughts or feelings openly for fear of being met with aggression, violence, or even the silent treatment? Did you ever feel like you or other family members were constantly vying for power or control with little regard for others' needs or feelings? Again, if you score each of those 0 to 5, the higher the score, the more likely this is applicable to you. I would love to know if you resonated with any of them, and if I missed one, let me know. I'd be happy to make another video and talk about this some more. Please hit subscribe, like, share, comment, all of those things, because the goal of My People Patterns is to help everyone grow great relationships.